Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if the panel could just briefly answer this. If you think that the U.S. economy and small business exporters in particular, are better off with a free trade agreement in place or worse off. I wonder if maybe start with you, Ms. Johnson.
Well, as we look at the competition and we see that all the free trade agreements that they have been making with different countries, I think that we have to be also to be competitive, that we have to be in the game also. And so those are very important to us. Whatever trade agreements they are, as I said, our future is depending on being able to export. You know, small business is the engine that makes the United States work, and so true for farmers also. So we see, as I said, we're only 5% of the population in the world now. So our growth potential depends on good trade policy and FTAs.
Mr. Fishback.
So free trade, I think the last statistic with free trade agreements is that we actually have a trade surplus with any countries with whom we have a trade agreement. Having a trade agreement in place for a small business exports only increases our ability to increase our sales in a given market because it reduces our costs and improves the avenues that we have for actually facilitating the trade. The more free trade agreements, the better, from my perspective, for a small business. In fact, I was just in South Africa in a month and a half ago doing a Gold Key service in Cape Town, and the President came out with his Doing Business in Africa campaign last year, but didn't back it up with any support for small businesses. So while I was there, found out that the European Union has a trade agreement with South Africa, which could reduce some of their tariff rates by 20% versus the ones that I'm paying. And so if we're going to come out with some type of an agenda item like that, maybe we should back it up with exploring new free trade agreements for companies to help us out.
Mr. Humpauer.
Thanks. I think that free trade agreements are a very big plus for small business. There's a lot of evidence that trade internationally is much smaller than it is domestically, and there are a lot of barriers, and free trade agreements tend to cut into the barriers. The one additional point I would make is that it's really too costly and too cumbersome for a small business firm to bring a dispute under a trade agreement. These disputes that you read about, the legal costs start at $100,000, and you can quickly march up to $1 million. And so what the government should do, in my opinion, and of course it will require money, is be more aggressive on looking at barriers which adversely affect small business and bringing cases on their behalf. GE can take care of itself, but small business firms cannot.
Ms. Huberman.
I can only speak to it from a practical, everyday interaction with my customers, and I can tell you that the trade deal we have with Canada makes my customers' ability to get their products into Canada much easier than any place else right now.
Well, I want to thank you all for your testimony here today. I think that small business is the engine that certainly that drives economic development in this country, that drives job creation, and so I think whatever we can do to facilitate more export markets, particularly for small business, I think is such a plus for the U.S. economy. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.